Hello, my friends. Hello. Welcome back. Excuse me. Have you ever been in an altercation on the street? In our last chapter, we had a moment where someone got pickpocketed. Have you ever been pickpocketed? Has anyone ever tried to take something from you, steal something from you? Have you been mugged? I've experienced many of those things. I was actually in Asia at one point. If you haven't been in Asia on the train, they can be very crowded. Literally, you could have 8 people touching you at once. And I had a camera, this was years ago, an actual camera, not my phone, strapped on. And I looked down and I saw someone's hand in my camera case. And I reached down there and grabbed their hand and I followed it back to the person. And they oh no, I didn't. Tried to act like they hadn't done anything. And they tried to escape, which was hard to do because we were so packed in. Pretty interesting. Let's see. The scales say hello. Can't wait to hear more. And they also said today is Hannah's 15th birthday. And she chose to spend it with you. Oh, Hannah, happy birthday. 15. That's awesome. I actually have a picture of the Scales family that they sent me yesterday, but they told me today I could share it. Here they are eating their chocolate pudding for breakfast with their copy of the Crescent Stone. I encourage all children everywhere to tell their parents that they're allowed to have chocolate pudding for breakfast because of this book. Let's see. I forgot to put the kids' names out in front of me. Maybe which one's which. I believe Hannah's the second one from the left there. But the Scales can correct me if I'm wrong. So happy birthday, Hannah. That's amazing. Let's see. Micah, my daughter, says, Dad, I have a question. Well, feel free to ask it, sweetheart. I'd love to hear from you. Even if it's a question not related to the book, that's fine. The Reeves are here. Hello, Reeves. Zoe is here too. Hi, Zoe. Got the whole gang. And Caitlin's back with us. Hello, Caitlin. A pleasure to have you all. What a wonderful day. It's another beautiful sunny day here in the Portland area. I just went on a walk with my middle daughter, Allie, which was fun. Okay. Here we go. Eva, Hannah, Abby, and Neil. Yes. Let's put that picture up again so you can see who's who. There we go. Eva, Hannah, Abby, and Neil. Happy birthday, Hannah. So awesome. So fun that you'd come hang out with us on your birthday. I hope you're doing some sort of dessert, I assume. Oh no. Micah said she just sucked my brain. My children play this game. Well, I play it also, where we suck each other's brains out like that. And then at the end of the day, the winner is the person with the most brains. But apparently it can be done over the internet. I don't know. I didn't invent the game, so I'm not always clear on the rules. Someone just assured me it could be done. So sneaky job, Micah. Sneaky job. All right, today we're picking up with chapter 20 of the Sunlit Lands, moving toward the grand conclusion. As you know, what has happened already is that, oh no, Micah's laughing at me now. Look at that. He. Sneaky kid. What has happened already? Madeline Oliver has a terminal illness, a type of lung disease called interstitial lung disease. That means that her lungs are getting increasingly scarred and that she's less and less able to breathe. What happens is a stranger comes from a magical world called the Sunlit Lands, whose name is Hanali. And Hanali says if Madeline will come and serve his people, the Elenil, for 1 human year, then she'll be completely healed. And her friend from class, Jason Wu, comes along with her, although he doesn't make a deal like that. His deal is he will stick close to Madeline and in exchange will receive 1 cup of chocolate pudding every day for the rest of his life. It's not a very good deal for the Elenil, but they can't figure out what's going on and they go along with it. Well, they're supposed to be fighting these bad guys called the Skim. They've been going back and forth trying to get them, have met several of them. They are terrible, largely. And what has happened is after a month there, a group has taken them in, They now live with the Knight of the Mirror in his castle Westwind. And in the last chapter, they've just been called in by the greatest authority in the land, someone named the Archon Thenity. And they have to get correct clothes. So Jason was off getting clothes with Ruth Mabue, who lives also in Westwind, because Ruth got angry at him because he was saying ignorant things about people who are impoverished. She forces Jason to steal a piece of fruit. And when he does, he's accosted by one of the peacekeepers of the Sunlit Lands, a Elenil named Sokar, and his tiger, which is terrifying. And now, after that, what happened was Sokar actually ran through one of the Skim kids who stole from Jason, runs him through with a sword, a little kid named Mud, which was very upsetting for everyone, including Mud, I am sure. Kristen asks, do we ever learn why Hanali's magic didn't work on Jason in the hospital? I don't remember. Actually, no. There's a couple times where magic doesn't work on Jason, and we never do figure out exactly why, because it shall be revealed in the third book, which I'm working on even now. So hang in there. We'll have an answer soon. Sarah says Hannah wanted cookies instead of cake, so we tried a couple new recipes. Chocolate raspberry sandwiches. Oh, and apple crisp cookies. Apple crisp cookies. I would like to try one of those. Sarah, please share the recipe with us because I would like to try it. Okay, and I have people who are baking constantly, right, Zoe? My daughter Zoe loves to bake. She's baking new desserts every 2 or 3 days. And my daughter Allie loves to bake, and she has made some things sometimes too. And Micah loves to bake, and she has made, what did she make? Snickerdoodles, which were delicious. Allie and I made fresh strawberry coconut ice cream 2 days ago, which was great. Okay, here we go. Zoe has a theory as to why Hanali's magic doesn't work. It's because Jason is awesome. It's a pretty good theory. I was just about to write that in chapter 3. Oh, okay, interesting. The scales. Hannah says, I'm reading a book based in China, and the main character calls her parents Baba and Mama, which is what Chinese kids would call their parents. I noticed that Shula used that as well as her background Chinese. No, Shula is from the Middle East, where actually the same thing is true. This is largely because almost all the world, mothers are Ma or Mama or something like it, and parents are Dada, Papa, Baba, something like that. And this is largely because we're told, probably, according to sociologists, these are the first things babies say. And so it makes sense that we would take those early noises and adopt them. So in Arabic, Ba or Baba is a very familiar, ordinary beginning name for young kids. And in China, all my kids called me Baba when they were little. So there you go. Okay, here we go. Chapter 20. I'm going to switch sides here so I can see a little better. Chapter 20, preparations. I saw a woman who sang as she slopped the pigs, though she had no apron to cover her dress. A scribe laughed to see his papers blown by the wind. A man whistled a tune when he saw his wagon wheel had broken. From The 3 Gifts of the Peasant King, a Skim legend. Now we'll begin the chapter. Big rhino, little rhino, Jason mumbled to himself. He stood in the square courtyard near Westwind's stables. Delightful Glitter Lady snorted at him, her ear twitching as a fly landed on her head. She closed her eyes halfway, enjoying the sunshine. She was in battle mode, much larger than a typical rhino, unicorn, whatever. Jason had the Ambiginator in his hand. The dial was turned all the way to the right to get her to full size. He had been studying how the magical debt was paid. It was helping to keep his mind off what had happened in the market, sort of. Anyway, for D to get big, something else had to get small, right? He had figured it out soon after the big battle by switching D's size a few times while walking around the stable near where he had first met her. There was a row of large stones near the city wall. He had noticed that one of them shrank when D grew, and vice versa. Once he figured it out, he had dialed D up to giant size and pocketed the corresponding small stone. He tossed the pebble in his hand. So far, he had managed to remember not to slip it into his pocket and then switch her size. He scratched Dee under the chin, and her eyes shut. She made a low, rumbling, contented sound. Madeline came jogging around the corner of the castle. With the Ellenil modesty rules, she had to wear a long-sleeve shirt and thin gloves when she ran. She had a small backpack as well. She stopped by Jason, hands behind her head, and caught her breath. "You're sweaty," Jason said. "Well, hello to you, too." Madeline grinned at him. "Are you having trouble breathing?" he asked, studying the way she gasped for air. Her grin grew wider. "It's what happens when you exercise, Jason. You should try it." He tapped his temple. "I'm exercising my mind, Mads." He pointed at her backpack. "For instance, my mind is saying, why is Madeline carrying a backpack while exercising? Interesting. My mind is wondering why you're doing magic in the courtyard where the knight might see and kick you out." Jason nodded. "Fair question. I've been studying how Ellenil magic works. For D to get big, something else has to get small." He showed Madeline the pebble in his hand. He tossed it by the wall. "Watch." He dialed the embiggenator to the left, and the rock grew to the size of a mailbox and then a trunk. Dee flicked her ears again, but now she came to Jason's knee. She looked up at him lazily, unconcerned. She prodded him in the leg with her horn. Okay, maybe slightly annoyed. Madeline knelt down and scratched the little rhino behind the ears. "Can I try it?" Jason shrugged and handed her the embiggenator. "Turn it to the right to make her bigger, to the left to make her smaller." Madeline turned the dial to the left. "Like this?" "No, she can't get any smaller." Except apparently she could. Dee trumpeted and rose up on her hind legs, barely the size of a kitten. "Aw," Madeline said, scooping her up in her arms. Dee cuddled in against her, squeaking and making happy unicorn noises. The stone, meanwhile, had grown larger still, leaning against the castle walls. "Huh," Jason said. "I didn't think she could go that small." "You could probably sleep in the castle now," Madeline said. "Just sneak her in your pocket until you go to bed." "She's a noisy sleeper, though. Now spill, Madeline. What are you doing with that backpack?" "It's got my clothes in it for our meeting with the Archon," Madeline said. "I want to take a hot bath before we go to the palace, so I'm going to sneak over to Mrs. Raymond's." Jason took Dee from Madeline and set her down. "How are you going to get out?" They're not meant to leave West Wind. The knight doesn't want them to. "I have my ways," she said. "You should take a bath, too." Jason snorted. "My suit smells like durian." "It won't make a difference. I could tag along, though. There's something I want to do." "Get your clothes, then, and let's go." "They're in the stable. Hold on." Jason ambled toward the stable, Dee frolicking at her feet. He nearly tripped over her several times. "Okay, girl, in you go." He turned the embiggenator to normal and shoveled some grass into her stall. "Don't give me that look. If the knight sees you the size of a stuffed animal, I'm going to get in trouble." He scooped up his suit and headed to catch up with Madeline. He found her near the front gate where one of the knight's soldiers stood guard at the drawbridge. She was a human teenager, too, and the guarding was largely ceremonial. No one could get into far-seeing without passing plenty of guards. This guard was supposed to keep the knight informed of who came in and out. Still, Jason's stomach clenched at the thought of being caught. "How do you get past the guard, Madeline? We're not supposed to leave the castle unattended." "Watch," Madeline said. "Hey, Tui," she said to the guard. Jason had no idea how Madeline knew her name already. She must have been hanging out with the other humans in the castle. He remembered Ruth's comment that, quote, all the girls had made fun of his hat, and he blushed. "Hey, Madeline," the guard said. "Sneaking out to get a bath again?" "Yeah, I hate how there's no magic in the castle." "Tell me about it. You know we're going to get busted if you get caught out there." "Don't worry," Madeline said. "We'll be careful." "We?" Tui glanced at Jason. "You're not taking him, are you?" "If it's okay with you," she said. "I don't know. He's sort of unpredictable." Jason wasn't sure how he felt about that. He tried to think of something unpredictable that he could do right now, but nothing came to him. Maybe that was unpredictable? "I'll bring you something from the market," Madeline said. "Not the market," Tui said. "I want a cinnamon roll from Mrs. Raymond's place. I love the knight, but the food at Mrs. Raymond's is so much better than here." "Deal." "Great," Jason said. "That's easy." The guard glared at Jason. "And a pudding." A what now?" "I want one of your magic puddings. We all know you get them, and I haven't had pudding in a long, long time. Jason crossed his arms. That's because pudding is terrible. People only want it when they're in the hospital or think they can't have it. Well, I can't have it now, so I want one. Fine, Jason said. I'll give you a magic hospital pudding. Can we go now? Tui looked straight ahead. I don't know what you're talking about. Madeline walked over the drawbridge. Come on, she said, looking back at him still standing next to Tui. That's her way of saying she can't see us. Now get moving. Oh, that made sense. He trotted across the drawbridge, and they headed toward Mrs. Raymond's place. The path they took would pass directly through the market. He told Madeline the story of Mud and that he wanted to check in on him. He felt embarrassed telling Mads about it because, in retrospect, he felt he should have known better, and especially because it had ended with such unexpected violence. But Mads took it in stride and didn't seem to think less of him for it. It was a relief to talk about it with her and to have her support. He didn't tell her about the dreams he'd been having, weird dreams filled with strange people, people that reminded him of the Skim, but less scary, kinder, strangely endearing. They had looked more human than Skin when he thought back on them, but he had known in his dream they were Skim, and there was this house, an old, dilapidated mansion with moss hanging from the roof that came into his dreams over and over. He stood in front of it in near complete darkness, and he could feel a small breath of air on his neck. An old Skim woman lived in the house, and he was there to visit her, to check in on her. Jason? Startled, Jason almost lost his footing. They stood near the fruit stand now, a full minute's walk from the castle, and he had been so deep in his own thoughts he hadn't noticed. He vaguely remembered that Madeline had been talking to him a moment before. Sorry, he said. Are you okay? Yeah, I was thinking. He cracked his knuckles. Okay. The Skim kids ran down that alley. The alley stank. It wasn't dark. There weren't dark places in Far Seeing, but it shouldn't have smelled either. Apparently magic toilets were not in use wherever that alley took them. Madeline strode ahead of Jason, who felt unaccountably nervous. He had a deep, unsettled feeling that the little Skim boy had already died. The cobbled alley gave way in places to patches of dirt and mud, as if whatever magic kept the city in perfect repair did not work here. They found the gang of Skim kids huddled together along the alley pathway, throwing colored stones in a circle. One of the kids looked up at them, grimaced, and looked away. They kept throwing stones. Excuse us, Madeline said. They ignored her. We're looking for Mud, Jason said. One of the boys grinned at him and without warning slung a handful of mud in his face. There you are, the kid said, and the rest of their little gang chortled and laughed and continued throwing their stones. Jason wiped a streak of mud from his face with his fingers. I just want to make sure he's okay. One of the kids, a young girl, stood. Her dark hands were closed in fists, her tusk-like teeth rubbing against the disgusted curl of her lips. Is that so? You care what happens to little Skim children? Then why is this the first time we've seen you? She scooped up her rocks. Mud is gone. Gone like gone? Or like dead? But the girl walked down the alley without turning back. The human lady took her, one of the boys in the circle said. Madeline crouched down beside them. The human? Do you mean the garden lady? The children laughed. You don't know nothing, do you? Said the boy. The garden lady. She only appears in a garden, don't she? Not in Skim alleys, huh? The children gathered their stones, evidently tired of the obtrusive humans. What's her name? Jason asked. One of the smaller boys lingered back. What will you give me for it? What do you want? The boy licked his lips, looking at Jason's feet. Your shoes, I think. Or, what's in the bag? Fine, Jason said. He wouldn't give him the suit. Ruth would kill him. The shoes. For a name. He kicked them off. He could snag another pair from David and Kakoa's room easily enough. They could just order more. The boy snatched the shoes up, cackling to himself. He held them against his chest. She has a tame name. Tame name? Like she was Skim once, but instead of being named Darkness Boils or some such, she has a tame name, a sunlight name, you know. The boy started to back away, but Jason grabbed him by the arm. Don't sneak away, buddy. You haven't given me her name yet. Another clod of mud came sailing down the alley and again caught Jason in the face. He lost his grip on the kid, who skittered backward with the shoes. "I don't remember it quite," the boy said, "but something about sunbeams, Ray Man, something like that." Then he scampered away with his friends. Jason wiped the mud from his face, then wiped his hand on his pants. "Ray Man. Well, that was worth it, I guess. Mud is alive, at least, or was." Madeline looked at him in consternation. "You didn't figure it out? He's talking about Mrs. Raymond." "Rayman Raymond." Jason gasped. I did not catch that." Madeline had already turned on her heel and was running for Mrs. Raymond's house. Jason pelted after her, barefoot and embarrassed. By the time they reached Mrs. Raymond's sprawling residence, Jason's feet ached. Jasper, the kid in charge of the armory, was sitting on the front steps, enjoying the sunshine. "Is Mrs. Raymond here?" Madeline asked. He shrugged. "Haven't seen her since breakfast." He squinted at Jason. "Hey, where's that unicorn? You didn't check it out from the armory." "Check it out?" D wasn't a library book, and besides, no one had told him he was supposed to do that. It wasn't his fault D loved him so much that he wanted to be with him at all times. "I can't even keep track of my shoes," he said. "How am I supposed to keep track of a unicorn?" He chased Madeline into the house, ignoring Jasper's shouted instructions. Madeline held her hand out, slowing him. She looked up the long stairway with the plush carpet. "Should we see if she's in her room?" "There's no way she brought some skim kid into her house. The Ellenil would go nuts. Even a lot of the human kids here hate the skim. But we can wait for her there if nothing else." "Okay," Jason said. They walked up the stairs, and Jason sighed with relief at the feeling of the plush carpet on his bare feet. He didn't know where Mrs. Raymond's room was, but Madeline seemed to. She took them through a series of hallways, twists, and turns, and came to a simple wooden door. Madeline knocked, but no one answered. "I guess we'll wait," Madeline said, and leaned against the wall. Jason leaned against the door beside her. It gave way, and he stumbled backward into the room. He straightened, taking a quick look to make sure Mrs. Raymond wasn't sitting in the room watching him, and he pulled the door shut again. "What are you doing?" Madeline asked. "It was an accident." She pushed the door open. "No, I meant, what are you doing closing it again?" "Bad idea," Jason said, but he followed her in and shut the door behind them. The room was about twice as large as the one he had shared with Kokoa and David. There was a window directly in front of them and a closet door on the left, on the wall to their left. A modest bed sat in the corner, a comfortable-looking chair placed near the window. There was even a fireplace, which was so clean he wasn't sure it had ever been used. But Madeline walked with reverent wonder toward the unexpected feature against the far wall, a rustic bookshelf packed with books. She ran her hand across the spines. "Look at all these. Tolkien, Lewis, Langle, MacDonald, Rowling." She pulled one from the shelf, turning it over in her hands. "They're all fantasy novels." "That's weird," Jason said. "Seems like you just want to enjoy living in your own fantasy land, not dreaming about other ones." Madeline gasped, shelved the book she had been holding, one by T.H. White, and crouched down to a lower shelf. "I can't believe it," she said. "It's the Tales of Messelia, all of them, and all first editions. Jason, these are my favorite books of all time." It was a little strange seeing books again after all this time in the Sunlit Lands. Jason picked up one of the books. It was called The Winter Rogue. He flipped through the pages. "That's the second one," Madeline said. "Then comes The Gold Firethorns, and then The Skull and the Rose. Oh, you'd love that one, Jason." Jason sighed and put his book back on the shelf. He was glad Madeline had found something to distract her for a moment, but he couldn't keep himself from wondering about mud, which reminded him of Night's Breath, which somehow reminded him of his sister. He put his hand against the bookshelf to steady himself. "Are you okay?" Madeline stood and put her hand on his shoulder. He nodded just as the closet door swung open, and Mrs. Raymond came walking out, drying her hands on a towel and talking as she walked. "We'll be fine, but you can't keep bringing me these orphaned..." For instance, these two. Honnelly had been walking close behind her and crashed into her when she stopped. He glanced up, the perplexed expression on his face changing into a look that said, "Oh, of course, this is Jason's fault." I do not recall extending invitations or permission to enter my private room, Mrs. Raymond said. Honnelly frowned. The boy has a way of weaseling into places uninvited. The door was open, Jason said, realizing how lame it sounded even as the words left his mouth. Mrs. Raymond took the books from Madeline and put them back on the shelf. Nor did I invite you to paw through my library. We didn't mean any harm, Madeline said. It's just that your hands are filthy, Mrs. Raymond said. She looked at Jason. What happened to your face, Mr. Wu? Oh, yeah, the mud. Hygiene standards are surprisingly lax here, Jason said. Honnelly rolled his eyes. This from the boy who took a bath while wearing his shoes. He looked at Jason's feet and then with a weary sigh looked back to his eyes. Where are your shoes? I sold them to a skim kid? Honnelly scowled. You should not be fraternizing with the skim, Wusong. It reflects poorly on me as your benefactor. Something in Honnelly's voice caught Jason's attention. He knew somehow that Honnelly was hiding something. Honnelly's eyes flickered just for a moment back toward the closet door. You know, Jason said, certain doors in this glorified youth hostel go places they shouldn't. He walked toward the closet. Keep your hand off that door, Honnelly said. I have a way of weaseling into places uninvited, Jason said, and swung the door open. Mud lay sleeping on a narrow bed in a stone room. Daesong, Galenya's skim assistant, looked up from the boy, a wash rag in his hand. Mrs. Raymond pulled the door shut with a firm hand. Stay away from the boy. You're covered in filth. He's in pain enough without an infection. Jason locked eyes with Madeline, but she appeared to have as little idea of what was happening as he did. He looked a question to Honnelly, who plucked at his sleeves with nonchalance. Mrs. Raymond has a way of picking up unfortunate strays, Honnelly said. And should you not be dressing for our audience with the Archon? Don't get me wrong, Jason said. I'm glad Mudd is getting medical help, but why do you have him here? Honnelly is well known in the skim community as the Elenil to approach when there are needs, Mrs. Raymond said. Madeline's eyes widened. He's what? Enough, Honnelly said, steel in his voice. We will talk no further of these things. The boy will be returned to his home when he is well. No one here will mention this again. Not to me, not to one another, and certainly not to the Archon. Mrs. Raymond's face set to stone. Honnelly, son of Vivi, she said, have you not shared your plans with these two children, even though they are a central piece of it? Nor would I have shared them with you if you were not so persistent and infernally nosy, Honnelly snapped. Hey, Jason said, offended, I'm persistent and nosy too. Honnelly glared at him. You, to the baths. We leave here in 1/2 of an hour. Every particle of mud must be gone from your face. He turned to Madeline. And you, have you more to say? Intrusive questions? Infuriating requests? Madeline blushed. When she spoke, her voice was so low, Jason almost couldn't hear it. Mrs. Raymond, could I maybe borrow some books? Mrs. Raymond put her fists on her hips and rounded on Honnelly. These are the children you've staked everything on, and you've not given them so much as a clue to the deeper game you're playing? Honnelly gave her a shocked look, his gloved hand on his chest. Deeper game? My dear Mrs. Raymond, I only desire invitations to the most prestigious parties. She glowered at him a moment before turning to Madeline and saying, Of course, dear, so long as none of them leave the house, and don't show them to the Elenil, since they can't read, they always think we're passing secret knowledge. If they catch you with a book, they'll make you read the entire thing aloud before they let you leave. Now run along and clean up. Jason hadn't seen Madeline so giddily happy before. She went to hug Mrs. Raymond, who turned her aside with a huff. Still giddy, Madeline grabbed Jason's hand and pulled him into the hallway. Mudd is going to be fine, Madeline said. And there are books. Yeah, and Honnelly has a secret plot. Big surprise, I guess. As if summoned, Hanley opened the door and stuck his head out. Mr. Wu. Yes? Use soap. Hanley closed the door again, leaving Jason alone with the laughing Madeline. Use soap, Jason grumbled. He picked up his bag with the suit in it and tossed Madeline her backpack. He started off down the hallway, then realized he had no idea where they were in the massive maze of Mrs. Raymond's house. Your room is the other way, Madeline said, passing him. Don't be late. Jason turned back, listened to Madeline's footsteps, headed the other direction. When she was gone, he paused by Mrs. Raymond's room. He could hear dim, concerned voices on the other side. He leaned his head close to the door, but couldn't hear what they were saying. It sounded like Mrs. Raymond was angry, and Hanley was trying to mollify her. He cracked the door slightly. Mrs. Raymond was talking. Too great a risk letting them in, not just to you, but to all of... We've already discussed this at length, Mary. Mrs. Raymond, Hanley. You don't get to call me Mary anymore. Hanley sighed. It is a risk, a terrible risk. But my dear Mrs. Raymond, how could the situation become any worse? There was a pause, and when Mrs. Raymond spoke again, her voice sounded tired and sad. There's always a way, Hanley. I suppose, he said, but it is the choice I have made. Now, if you will excuse me, I feel an urgent need to check on Mr. Wu. If I leave him alone for even a few minutes, he makes the worst kinds of trouble. Jason jumped away from the door and hugged his bag close to his chest. He half ran, half walked to the end of the hallway and turned right, then speed walked until he knew where he was. If he hurried, he should have just enough time to clean up and get dressed. Hanley had asked how the situation could get any worse. Jason had a sinking feeling that he would be the one to figure that out. The end of chapter 20. Tomorrow, chapter 21, the Palace of 1,000 Years. They're going to be face to face with the Archon again. Let's catch up on our comments here real quick. Zoe says, Hanley is the worst. Zoe, Hanley's great. Many people love him. Patrick says, Ni hao, Matt. Ni hao, Patrick. Ni hao, ma. Ni shanti hao buha. Jonathan says, Babbo is used in Italy for dad or daddy. That's great. Babbo. I like that. Am I saying it right? Is it Babbo or Babbo? Babbo. Meh. Let us know. Joanna says, I just got here and Micah's in the chat. She's so excited. And Micah said, Zoe? And Joanna said, this is Joanna, Matt's friend. She's been to our house, Micah. You know Joanna. I'll show you a picture. Okay, Beth, Dr. Awesome says, I told my language teacher about durian today. He'd never heard of it. If we find one here, we'll have a well-ventilated durian party. Oh, I would like to see pictures of that. Please do send and share with us. Micah says, oh, okay. Joanna, you're fine now. She's Lily me on here, but that's Joanna. Zoe says, I hate Hanley so much. Zoe, please. Allie is reading book 3 right now, which Zoe has what I've written so far, but hasn't read it. I think you're going to love Hanley even more when you start reading book 3, Zoe, because Hanley is spectacular. Let's see, smiley face. Patrick says, Wo henha. He's doing great. Xie xie, which means thank you. Buyong xie. No need to thank. All right, my friends, I will see you tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll be picking up while, oh no, Zoe is now writing in Chinese. Wo bu xi huan Hanley. I do not like Hanley. Wow, multiple languages are now pitching in. This is very exciting. We have a lot of different languages spoken on this get together. By the way, Dr. Awesome speaks, I don't know, 6 languages probably. Zoe's got several. Micah speaks Spanish. I'm sure. Well, Jonathan speaks Italian. Apparently, we could have a party, a multilingual party here. All right, tomorrow, Madeline and Jason are going to end up speaking to the Archon and Don't forget this Friday, I'm really excited to share with you Morgan Bussey is going to be with us. She's the author of the Ravenwood Saga. I think you guys will enjoy that. As always, Tyndale.com is taking orders and sending books right now. If you're trying to get a hold of the Crescent Stone or the Heartwood Crown or any of Tyndale's books, they would be glad to send them to you. They've still got folks working at a safe distance in their warehouse. You can, of course, also go to oasisaudio.com and have a professional reader read as many chapters to you a day as you would like. And as always, don't forget to like, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Liking and commenting tells the internet little robots, little artificial intelligences, which are basically magic, to go, hey, other people might be interested, which is a gift to me and a gift to all those poor people out there who have nothing to do, who will then join us. And you can always subscribe either at youtube.com/MattMichelatusBooks or at facebook.com/MichelatusBooks. And that way you can keep track, and subscribing will tell you when these new live casts are coming out. And for all of you who are watching late, who aren't with us live, hey, we're so glad you're here. So thankful you're a part of things. Feel free to still send comments, send notes. You can send me an email. If you can spell my last name, you can find me, which I know is asking a lot, but there you go. Caitlin, we'll end with this. Caitlin speaks Pig Latin. Does that count? Esye it a usde. Happy birthday, Hannah. So glad you joined us. Enjoy your cookies, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Adios.